you don't realise the desperation. We see people when they need a sale and they're trying their hardest to do all the right things and they want to get themselves out there and they want to put more energy, and it literally has the other effect. Then you have someone who swans in and then picks an opportunity out of nowhere, and you've been sitting in that pond. I find the same frustration as a fisherman. I've been sitting there all day. Someone drives their boat up and puts it in and catches the fish you've been waiting 8 hours for. I'm like, I've been here all day doing the work. Why?
All right, you ready to do this?
No.
Excellent. Yeah. I was at an event the other day. I was chatting with a mate of mine who's I hang around all the time. He's in the same sort of networking groups. But he was there. He runs a trade business, pretty good business, localized area. But I know his trajectory and I know he's absolutely killing it at the moment.
Good
so on a really good trajectory. The interesting thing for me was there was another guy there that come and visit, and he's visited quite often to the group. On paper, these two businesses would be identical. Like you couldn't tell them apart. They serve the same locality. They serve the same client base. They serve everything is identical. The trajectories though could not be any more different. So we've got John over here who's absolutely flying, loving life. Opportunities are falling out of the sky. Then we've got this guy that came and visited. He was like, you looked at him and you're going, are you okay? Like, do you need to go to the hospital or something? Like,
it's tough. Yeah,
that
I
weight
get it.
was sitting down.
Yeah.
Like, on paper, they're the same. What's the difference in that? Because they should be getting the same opportunities.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because we've seen that a lot over the years, particularly working with hundreds of businesses, if not thousands, in the same sort of vicinity, and being able to see them. We went through our own frustrations of this. Is why do we feel like we're doing exactly the same as other businesses over the years, yet one of them seems to, by all metrics, be getting more opportunities, better clients, making a hell of a lot more money. What it is, it's it's fascinating because we've seen this so often over the years, right? It's just
we've seen it, we've been it at times.
Yeah, 100%. It's the only way you sort of learn it as well. But it's funny. I think it goes back to some of the things we talked about in the past, which was at what stage is a company at, and have they made the transition into putting the company in the way of the right opportunity for the next stage in their development, and particularly mapping this over the years. There are distinct times where a business needs to actively change gears. Some of them fall in it by dumb luck because they're pulled that way. But if you actively don't change gears at specific inflection points, you stagnate, or you go back to the level of comfort you have in a type of size or a feeling. You're speaking about your mate, and it's difficult because he's probably going through that whole cycle of I don't want to be where I am as a business. I'm trying my hardest to get out of it, but I feel like I always default back to needing more clients or having weight, or something just happens. It's just this cycle of what, I'd say 90% of small businesses go through if they don't understand at what point a dramatic shift needs to occur. And that's not just new clients, different way of approaching things, but you just almost have to outgrow the stage you're at to then, sort of reflect on what John's going through, which is he's made a leap, he's put in some different things, and he's now getting the momentum of he's essentially always in the way of opportunity now, or his business is. I don't know what, speaking to those sort of guys, how do they see? Because I always find it fascinating. It's easy as an observer, particularly it's why, consulting is one of the easiest businesses in the world. You actually get to stand back and observe, and you get a perspective, which is can be very valuable. But it's also pretty easy when you're not standing on the tightrope yourself with the 100-meter fall. But what did you notice about the difference in sort of those guys and the approach? What was the indicator for them? You both of them.
Yeah.
What do you reckon it is?
Well, if I look at just the environment that we're in, which is that networking kind of room, I know it's a little bit woo-woo, but it comes back down to the energy that they're approaching the room with. So that either of them could use probably the exact same words, but the feeling that the person standing in front of them would get would be completely different.
Yeah.
So you've got John, who's he's loving life. So every conversation, he's kind of attracting people to it. where
It's very woo-woo, Nigel. Okay, there's light some candles and...
but like I've been in sales long enough to know that you can say the exact right words, but if your energy's off, if you don't 100% believe them, or you go a little doubt starts to creep in, the effect is completely different.
Yeah.
And I think particularly in those rooms, because no matter like if you're in networking, whatever you go into them, it's always like walking into a 16th birthday party.
Yeah.
Like you kind of, or your first day at school, you kind of walk into a room and go, oh, do I have a friend? Does anybody know me?
Yeah.
It's an
There was the
uncomfortable...
old beware of the lonely traveller, when someone who's been travelling on their own for so long and you strike up a conversation is they're now stuck to you and want to travel with you for because the human connection, all that. There's the old saying for backpackers is beware of the lonely traveller.
3 days later, they're still with you in Prague.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's what you say is really interesting because you don't realise the desperation. We see people when they need a sale and they're trying their hardest to do all the right things and they want to get themselves out there and they want to put more energy, and it literally has the other effect. Then you have someone who swans in and then picks an opportunity out of nowhere, and you've been sitting in that pond. I find the same frustration as a fisherman. I've been sitting there all day. Someone drives their boat up and puts it in and catches the fish you've been waiting 8 hours for. I'm like, I've been here all day doing the work.
Yeah,
why?
I think that's the thing. Like you look at John, like he's not trying to do anything like in those rooms. He's just having fun and having good conversations, and something pops up.
But there's magic in this.
Yeah.
And this is, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I don't know if I've had friends at different stages in life wanting to find a life partner going through a stage of they're ready. It's the same sort of energy of when you are looking, it's hard to find. Yeah. When you are not looking, the abundance is there.
It's a 3 a.m. on the dance floor kind of feel.
And because it's when you're hunting, you're actually changed the energy of who you are. When people are abundant, the flow that you get through a company, and I think that's one of the great stages in a business when the company is flowing and we got another 10 leads this week, we got another 100 leads, we got this sales. Oh, that came from nowhere. Oh, remember that opportunity we had months ago? It's popped up when we don't need it. Oh, but we're so busy now, and it's that we're all striving to keep our cultures and our companies in that state of flow. But it's really difficult when you're not in it and you're forcefully trying to shift back to, right, I got to find a client, I got to get an opportunity, I'm going to do it, and you just come across as aggressive. Wasn't a boat party, because when you think of a boat party, it certainly wasn't loud music and dancing. It was actually in Melbourne here, we've got there's a venue where there's a raft on the Yarra River, and you sit there and you go, and anyway, we were invited to a closed party there, and it's essentially just canapes and drinks and having it. And I remember being there, and there was this one guy, and he did damage to his career. And I'm sure everyone can relate to this, but he was so desperate to be networked, and there was a really interesting caliber of people and opportunities around, but his demeanor and the way he would box people up and the way he would just want to get out what he does and all that, isolating conversations and doing things like that, it created damage. Like, people still refer to that, remembering he was there. Wow. And I sit and think of that, which is, and I feel sorry for him, because when you're going through these things, you're trying so hard. It's not from a place of being selfish. You're really trying, and sometimes the trying just, it grates. And when you're unaware of it, especially there where it was sort of, you're having some alcohol and all that, you're completely unaware of it. But people rolling their eyes and sitting there, and you're doing such damage. And I suppose everyone can relate to it in some form. When we've needed sales, we're trying so hard, or maybe the practical thing we see also is people then start to heavily discount. We're so desperate for a sale that the translations, from a network environment to they lose trust in their product and their value proposition and what they're selling, so they start to discount, and then a few months later they realise they've discounted so much that there's no profit there to do all the things, so you've got this downward spiral that just is so difficult to break. But the version of this comes up across the company. It's we were talking about it the other day in the car when we were just talking about is those pivot points that we sort of look at is where a company is how do I shift how I put myself in the way of opportunity. And it's there is a set process to this. And we talk about, particularly in your friends there, and I know the businesses as well, it's why has that person grown 4 to 5 times bigger than basically the same person 2 years ago that he was? And it's almost not saddening because we're just like, it's amazing for John. Like he's doing the work, he's doing all the things, and it's exciting to be around people winning and getting momentum. But on the flip side of that, you look and you feel really sorry for the others. I don't want to mention their name because it's unfair. But you feel sad because in their mind they're equally trying, but they're not actually putting effort in the same area, or they're not putting their business in the way of the right opportunities anymore. And we talk about this at you exhaust yourself at a certain level of building a company where the founder can't be the only avenue to growth or accelerated growth. And there's a compounding effort of the founder needing to transition away from, I understand the value proposition, I've been in front of it. Traditional businesses we're talking here, online actually has a same mechanism, different or input being the digital touch points. But essentially we call it go to market. I understand where I fit in the market. I understand what I'm offering, and I understand how to attract the type of customer. Now, if we need more of those, now how do we become a business that is being compounded by lead generation and growth opportunities through being part of other people's systems or processes, or you've got joint venture partners, or you've got channel partners, or you've got links at different websites, or you've got influencers that are sending, whatever it is. But how do I make sure that if the founder stops, in your case you're describing being a networker, which is, a lot of people start that way, how does the opportunity still keep coming? How, when I don't put in effort into business development, does business development come to me? How do I attract that sort of things? And I don't think it's a woo-woo thing of, I'm attracting it because I'm thinking clear. I think it's more, no, I've put infrastructure in place that there's enough of it coming in regardless of the channel, albeit we need to monitor the channels, that the volume just gets bigger and bigger. So you can't outrun the compounding effect of having inbound opportunity in whatever your business is. And once you've got those systems set up, once those processes, or you're managing them the right way, well, it changes your entire business, because you can actually start scaling that business, albeit scales all relative to the size and your ambition. But in the case you just described, he's failed to get to a scaling point, albeit his next scaling point is all the energy is reliant on him to generate work and interest. And because he's doing none of the other stuff to set up this infrastructure for him slowly, he'll never break this cycle. And it's really difficult because it's going to be 20 years of the same thing.
Well, how does someone break that? So, because there's that area of comfortability, because I'll refer back to networking, because that's where we've kind of grown up in. I've kind of grown up in. People become comfortable in those networks because they're in small business, particularly service-based kind of ones. They're as much about community support as growth opportunities for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think people maybe stay in the one area too long and don't look for new opportunities or new pools to fish, those kind of things. Because even if you look at John, he's still in the same room that he was in 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
But to be fair, and this is where I think the nuance maybe exists in, is the network, and let's just take networking as an example, people turning up doing that. The networking, there's amazing organizations globally of people wanting to stay together. It's how you see the network. So initially when someone starts a business, they may see networking as their core growth driver.
Yep.
So they're establishing their business, they're understanding their offering, they're getting feedback directly from people who become friends, and they enjoy the way to break loneliness, which is, for me, it's tick, 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 tick. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is if you don't have clarity on where you want to get to as a business, you lose sight of the purpose of that. So the networking should be around that initial go-to-market, if that's the strategy for that person, learning, building a network, getting involved with people, but not becoming the sole generator of work for you.
Yep.
Because if you've got ambition to grow another business or have a business that's not relying on you to do that, you're becoming a business owner versus self-employed, which is a very different distinction, albeit they're both business owners. But it's building a business that doesn't rely on you. So at what point do you look at it, the network as an example of we no longer can look at that as our lead generation or our major lead generation area. So what are the other areas we need to start experimenting with while we're doing that? And that transitions a step by step. It's why when a lot of business owners feel they're doing well, and we've seen the data over years that the feeling of doing well versus you can just see there's no chance they're going to break this cycle or get out of what we call this phase of their business development. And some people, like John, for an example, he doesn't need to be at that network anymore, but he actually really enjoys it.
Yeah.
And there's enough for whatever he's getting to be part of what he wants to do. So all power to him because he's a happy chappy. And the looseness he has in those areas is because he actually doesn't need to work from that network.
Yeah. Well, he almost seems to be actively trying to fend it off.
Yeah,
he's there to socialize and then all of a sudden people go, let me work with you.
Yeah. And this is where the judgment when people have on networks go, it's not worth my time. It's like, well, that's fine. But also a network's what you want it to be and the way you want to contribute. Like, as you said, you've got friendships in there, you've got familiarity. That's fine as long as it's still in line with the business plan. And I think with people who don't have a plan and then align these strategies. So let's look at networking as one. The second one be around it might be a marketing channel you use. So we initially used, an Instagram ads channel that we've outgrown because it had a diminishing return up until a certain point. It felt really good and then we got to a point and we sort of couldn't break that cap. And then we have to look at, well, what's happening outside that? Or we have to move from we initially are a direct-to-consumer, but now we really need to look at a wholesale model where we need others selling our product or services. And this is the beauty of business. Your model needs to be reviewed at every key moment. And the hard bit is, well, how do I know when to change the model?
Yeah. Thank you for asking my question.
But if we look in this case, one of the indicators is I hate what I'm doing and I hate my business. Or I'm working so hard, we're so busy and we're making no money. So there's so many indicators of when you need to evolve your model, and you should be at least reviewing your model periodically, if not quarter, every 6 months, definitely every year, because the world's also changing so significantly at the moment, including the technology that we speak about religiously. Reviewing your model is part of your job of owning a business. The hard bit is looking at people who don't have that awareness, or it's not a lack of curiosity, but people need to have a curiosity around how else could I do this business if I wanted to. And to me, that's one of the exciting parts of being able to find that time where I'm curious around ripping my business apart. You actually have to be curious to dissect your business periodically. And, we speak about that. I mean, you got a great example of going to networks, but you've not outgrown some networks in terms of the people in there, outgrown as in, hey, I've been here enough, people know me. I've got to now branch out because it's still a key strategy for some of the companies we're involved in, but it can't be in the same pond.
Yeah. You talk about someone being curious about pulling apart their company, redoing that. How do you engender that within someone? Because a lot of people, I'm not even sure where I heard it from, but a lot of people say they've been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but essentially all they've done is they've done one successful year and then repeated that year after year because they got the result.
Not necessarily a successful year, Nigel. Just they survived a year.
Their most successful year.
Having 15 years of survival and calling it building a business.
But there is comfort in, it might not be happiness, but there is comfort in knowing what you do. It's really, I found otherwise, why would we keep repeating the same patterns in business?
Well, that's a pretty deep question.
Sorry?
No, a bit of lighthearted discussion on.
But when someone's that ensconced in, this is what I do, this is how I do it, how can you help them, or how can they see to break that pattern and actually put themselves somewhere different?
Well, I think it's actually a very deep question. Whether we're talking about the human condition, which is people can get very, very comfortable in horrendous conditions.
100%.
And, you know, not being able to see the forest from the trees and all the sayings that go with that. But business is no different. In fact, when you start building a business and you feel like you're fighting the world to get up and get your thing going, and you just keep trying, you know, I've said this before, is entrepreneurs have this amazing optimism. They see the world in a way that this is what it's going to be. So actually the blinkers are on. And when you talk about, well, how do you know you're the victim? Now, the feeling we've got, and I think this is the empowerment part for people as they experience does one thing, but you have to be open to, or you have to consider that every day we could be doing this better or different, and my job as the leader and over the business is to at least consider it. Now, putting infrastructure around you, putting a great team that keeps you on your toes, running things like that, you know, innovation sessions, rethinking about it, always looking at the contrarian view. You know, I don't want to keep pushing Backable, but actually having these things automated for you that you have to think about it. It has to give an opinion because it's those breakthrough moments that you've been doing something for so long. It could or should be done better. You know, we can use our example. You know, we ran a traditional performance consultancy, and it's great. And we're, you know, to be honest, the humble brag, we're really proud of the work we did with people. There was some life-changing events for people during those periods, more money than they ever seen, going from despair to complete exhilaration, like some really things that everyone who contributed here should be proud of. But technology shifted, and the way that can now be given to people at different ways. So if you were closed to that, you would just keep doing the same thing until eventually it either peters out or someone else can provide something better. So you've got to actually choose as the owner, who do I want to be? Am I here to serve people in my area of expertise? Am I here to grow a company because I love seeing if we can do it better? I want to challenge the status quo. Do I see an opportunity that I think we could do? These are the things you have to decide all the time, but also you're allowed to shift. How you started the business and where you want to go might be very different as you start to get some confidence, some capital, some opportunities. Some, you know, we've seen some owners that, you know, they were here and they go, I just want to run this little business, and my priority is my family, which to me is like the ultimate success. Is well done. That's, you know, your priorities. You I wish I was you sort of thing. Like that's the good for you. Keep doing it. And then they get offered their competitor's business quickly because I need to sell, and it's an opportunity they can't say no to, but they should say no to. And so much happens in the journey, and this is that openness of, I must at least consider myself someone who puts my business in the way of opportunity. And when opportunity comes, how do I then perceive it or evaluate it? And I think that's critical to running a company today more than ever.
But, using that example of the boat party guy, I'm sure in his mind, he was, but through what he was doing by sort of just pitching and putting people together, that he was putting himself in the way of opportunity.
Yeah. Agreed. But how do you show up to it? So just putting yourself in the way of it is not the game. It's to identify where the opportunity needs to come from or where you should be, and then how are we presenting in those opportunities. So actually understanding what's the purpose of this. We're in an environment where people are letting their hair down, networking, creating relationships, because it's a deep relationship network. These people are serious business people that have got experience. I don't want to say seen it all, but they're established. If you understand that environment, you don't look like a fish out of water when you're trying to run around like a headless goose that's just everyone else's. You see the tone, you see the way it is, you understand the environment, you understand your role as who invited you there. You start putting the things together to be a contributor to an environment that is what everyone's trying to curate. From that, high trust builds.
Yeah.
From high trust, then you get an opportunity to have a real conversation about business, or you're invited in for that conversation. And we're a bit different here in Australia because we're ultra conservative with that. You know, you're over in, that's why I sort of, you know, I always talk about how much I love the States with all the interesting things the US has going on all the time. The core essence of that entrepreneurism is very unique, an amazing value set and energy that we don't have here in Australia. And I haven't yet found it in other parts of Europe, but actually in America, there's that, something that it's not just the American dream, it's that entrepreneurism and optimism. It's really something special, albeit they have their own challenges of going through things like all countries do. But it's here, you're in a conservative business culture in that specific environment and timing, understanding when it's right to change gears, but also where does that lead to? So what sort of person is attracted to that energy? It's transactional. If you're looking for deep relationships where you're now seeded into opportunity ongoing and you're looking at it as a lifetime relationship, you don't begin with it being a closed transaction and sale. So that was an environment where there's a lot of opportunities, and most of the opportunities are not on the surface level because people have deep networks and relationships. You're fluffing around in the wrong spot if you're on board for a relationship that's deep and longer, because you want to get to know the people, their business, understand them. So how could you possibly be pitching if you really don't have that essence? Now, that's not for all environments. I understand that. Go to a trade show. It's an energy where people are there just to move and shake.
It's transactional.
And people are opting into the transaction because we want to make sure we're if we can do business, we can meet up after.
You're playing the rules of the game.
Or it's dismissed quickly, so we're not wasting each other's time. But that's a perfect environment because it's set up for that. They're huge and there's lots of opportunities. So everyone's like, high five. You and I will not work together, but good luck to you. Good luck.
We will never see each other again.
But it's understanding that. And I think that's where, you see the experience or people that are flying in business, because they generally have it's that powerful position in most rooms when you're feeling confident and comfortable with who you are, your business, how you're getting customers, because that you lose that nervous energy because you know exactly who you are. It's almost the self-realization through your company. The company knows who it is, and you can act accordingly. You see salespeople in those companies that know who they are, the way they come across and their process, versus ones that are they haven't worked it out yet, so they're jumping at everything.
But I mean, the putting yourself in the way of opportunity, it extends out past the sales and that networking kind of space. Where is I was thinking about it. There's a thin line between putting yourself in the way of opportunity and just taking a wild swing.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, sometimes you just got to take the swing. And probably should. The issue is when you're swinging and there's no ball to hit. So actually you're taking a swing, but you're trying to create an environment that's not existing. So you're actually completely blind. And what you think you're taking a swing at actually is you're not even in the game. So you can swing as hard as you want if you're sitting in the grandstands and you're not actually in the game. And it's just having that, and that's just the specific environment, but people can translate that out into different, environments, like tiny businesses trying to get big contracts that, of course, they want to build up to that, but actually they don't understand that environment yet. And you've got to understand the environment. It's like, I want the big opportunity for a big contract. Great. Do you understand that environment? No, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So you set yourself up for disappointment because you haven't even taken the time of understanding or learning or getting to know how do I even deliver or be part of that? What does it work? So you haven't done the work. Yeah. And so it's like, I remember, I keep going back to the fighting. I'd done the work, but, one of my early fights, particularly as an amateur, was going up against a guy that had fought for a world championship a month earlier. He'd had, it was 140 odd professional fights, and I was on my first. And I took a swing because I'm like, I'd love to do the main event. Yeah. Do you know what happens? You're not equipped. Physically, I was great. Yeah. But what you learn in every single one of 146 professional fights against all these things is it's like going to business going, I want this work, and you actually have no idea on the nuance that the experience of having 1,000 transactions, working with different people, evolving your product. You think it's just getting a contract, but actually you're not even in the game. Yeah. And you get disappointed by that because you're constantly setting yourself up for failure because you're not doing the work. And the problem is you're not aware of the work that needs to be done yet.
I think that's the point, because I think most people I know in this space, they try as hard as they can.
Yeah.
They do the things they know how to do, but it's those gaps in knowledge and going, I'm digging a hole over here when there's already one that exists over here.
Yeah.
But they've not looked right to actually see that.
Yeah.
I don't know what my question is around that, but when there's someone going that far down that line, I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah.
How do you pull yourself out of the way of that?
How do you identify delusion as the person?
Yeah. That's probably the question.
Yeah. And this is the challenge we have, which is sometimes you've got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, am I deluded? And this is probably one of the big challenges, is because being an optimist of having a company, you have a form of delusion anyway, because most likely where you are now is where you saw it once before, so it feels exactly the same.
Yeah.
So actually, for me, that's why it's one of the nuances of understanding your data and your energy and your effort and where it's leading to is if you're not ticking off small milestones, it's very hard to work out if you're progressing or you're just on the precipice of someone told me there's no way you could do it and I'm just going to prove them wrong again. And that's where you can build the bigger delusion around some things. But then you see some of the amazing things people say, because everyone loves the story of everyone says I couldn't do it and I did it. And they go, well, that's how you grow a business. It's one way of growing a business. Yeah. But, everyone loves the story of the lottery winner. But when you've had 1 million entries and won one, no one's listening to the 999,999 that lost. And so you just got to temper with stepping back and looking and go, what could we do better in this situation? What is it in that self-evaluation, the consideration without bias, the consideration without emotion? How do I look at it and go, hey, actually, how am I coming across in these situations? Like I met a thing, like how many people followed up with me after that? I'm like, not one.
Yeah.
Now, is that me? Is it not an opportunity, or is it whatever it is? But
yeah, I actually went through a phase where, because I've been networking for a long time, I went through a downturn, let's say, like things weren't, I didn't feel comfortable in the rooms. So instead of pushing, like I just went to the closest people and I go, how am I presenting here?
Yeah.
Like what do you, and when you've got your one-to-ones or your meetings and generally you pitch and you tell people what it is, I would go to people and go, what do you understand that I do?
Yeah.
Like how am I, because I wanted to know what I was saying that wasn't resonating and how I was presenting in that. And it was little minimal shifts.
Yeah.
But it was just, oh no, you look tired or you feel like this, or the one thing that was really hard to hear is going, oh, I wouldn't come to you for help because you look too busy.
Yeah.
At that point. And that was a real shock to me.
Yeah.
I just went, okay, no, I've really got to work on that because I'm never too busy for those that like want help or that I'm close to.
Yeah.
But that was what I was putting out without knowing it.
I think that's an excellent example. And I think, having a group of people that you can trust, and we've spoken about, or I've spoken about the small group of people I've been golf setting with for 25 years, close friends, then we do this. And we ripped off the Seinfeld airing of grievances because they're so trusted in each other's lives that we can have frank conversations and ask difficult questions to challenge ideas and perspectives, and you appreciate it when you've got those people. So that's, I think, also the importance of being in communities and with other business people that you can ask direct questions is, why not? If, one of the questions we used to ask our accountants, and it still shocks me that this isn't, why wouldn't my accountant ever refer me? And at this time we had a service business, so I'm like, is someone who happy to work with me, but have they really ever shown interest? And the question is, why not? And it's not because they don't like you, it's not this, but it's getting a perspective of why wouldn't you buy from me? It's, one of the old sales tactics that, one of the quickest sales ways is, if I could solve this, would you buy? And if people say, yes, great, here's a contract, it's sort of understanding from a perspective of outside looking in is, and that's really what also a great consultant or coach or support person can also do if you don't have that network of people who, you value their opinion on that area, but the nuance in the observer giving you some feedback is ultra valuable. It's one of the things I'm sort of most excited about with the technology is I can have conversation and it's blunt. Yeah. And if you love that blunt feedback, which I think most people desperately appreciate when they get it in the right way,
Yeah.
it's invaluable because, as you said, small nuances, and I love that one, is people thought I'm busy, so you don't want to. It's I think, as you said, seeking out those thoughts, like even going to someone you trust now and go, tell me why you wouldn't buy from me. Tell me why you don't see my service as valuable, not in a mean way, but actually get that feedback. You know, the mystery shopper thing's been around for many years. We do it here all the time, which is trick someone in, don't tell them you're going to purchase or do business with them, and give them some direct feedback. It's, no one's ever not been appreciated.
So just going back to what we were talking about before, getting the feedback, the actual honest feedback. And so mystery shopping, those kind of things. Is that something you seek out often?
Not seek out often myself, but seek out to challenge any constraint in the business. And, you know, sales is always an easy one to speak about, or client acquisition or revenue driving activities. But, you know, we're having even a conversation today. We're analysing a company in our portfolio, and we were looking around. Well, speaking to the CEO of that company, and said, right, you know, it's a little one just starting to have some breakthroughs. Is how's our conversions of new clients? What's the feedback? What are they saying? You know, is it matching to what we think should be said at this stage, or the experience that we would have on our own product? And the interesting thing was, the conversion was here, it's okay, and here's some of the ideas. And well, wait a minute, how are those ideas being formed? I was like, it's an assumption. Okay, well, great. So we get people to buy immediately our product, and then how are they nurtured for ones who still need to go through a cycle? They're still in decision. They're not all ready to purchase up front. They're in a different stage of the sales cycle. Well, nothing. We just, you know, it goes through to, you know, they just didn't want to buy. And it's an interesting thing that even when you're talking to people who are experienced, same things occur, which is the constraint that you think's happening, and that's a constraint in anything of the way I present, the way my business presents, the perception of where my business is at, the perception in the type of client we take, the perception in our product services. It's, you know, one of the fun things to do is ask your closest clients, what do we sell? And you'd be surprised how much don't align to what you think they think you're selling. But just looking at that is look at the constraint and then work out, well, where's the opportunity here? Because the opportunity for this business, as I just mentioned, was you're doing zero nurturing, whereas when 90% of the people are going to come out of, or clients are going to come out of that nurture process, and there's not one set up. And so the immaturity is around, we connect with someone, they've opted in, I'm interested in your product or service, they buy, and then you assume everyone else doesn't want to buy, versus, hey, it's not, their timing's not right yet, so why are we not wanting to create longer relationships with them in any form? What is the form? How do we look at that? You know, and that's one part of that process that could dramatically shift the success of that company, because you start building, every lead and opportunity now is looked over a lifetime, not just in the first week of transaction or the first interaction of transaction. And that's one of the things. The second one is, well, for those people there, is there another opportunity in the type of sale, an opportunity and an offer? So then you start to have 3 or 4 different ways to take the same opportunity, and going back to your friend at the start, which is, he may be getting the same opportunity, but he hasn't even looked at how to carve it out to serve either a different client, a different way of servicing that client, or whatever it is. You know, some people won't buy from you because they can't get a bulk discount, but they actually want to buy more. Yeah. And we've seen that a lot. Or, you know, the timing, or the de-risking of the initial purchase to switch over from another provider. There's so many ways to look at it, but it's that thing of doing the same thing over and over again, whether you're putting yourself in the opportunity, and when you are in the opportunity, are you actually flexible enough to look at, is the opportunity I see actually the one that I perceive, or the one that's proven? And if you can find the balance between shifting on all of those, you become a very, very powerful business, because essentially everyone's getting the same opportunity. The only difference is you're working out how to turn it into a real opportunity.
So where are you putting yourself in the way of opportunity at the moment?
In terms of
the business?
Well, obviously here. Yeah. So opportunity here is familiarity and connection. So there's a lot of noise especially in technology and stuff like that. So people want to actually understand, well, why would I try your product? Why would I try Backable? Why would I get on? So for us, is the the transparency around philosophy, how we've seen why we build, and some of the things that we believe our technology's captured that others wouldn't be aware of based on the experiences we've had over the last decade. And so I think hopefully as people listen to this, there's it drives curiosity on trying and being part of the community and contributing as being part of a free community. It's like, that's still effort, because we're asking people, well, you still have to take the chance to give your time and, see what it's like. That's a jump for anyone. It doesn't matter whether it's free or, $1,000 a minute. It's not but to actually understand that and go, yeah, philosophically I understand, but also I have an interest because I feel like I may be someone who's not transitioning in my business the same way. I feel stuck. I'm not sure if it's me or the business or the things happening. I can see others, they could maybe be familiar with being both of those people at different times, but actually what's the science and math behind it? How does something look at it objectively? And I'm able to riff with to work out, if I get to those stages, who do I talk to? And hopefully people understand that can have a value for them growing their company if they're on our platform and sharing and find others, and equally can do business with others, because that's I think the really exciting part is having a community of people who want to grow that can be curated by your intelligence, and you can do business together. Also gives you a hell of a lot more opportunity ongoing, which is, why would you ever cut your business off from opportunity if there's basically a zero time sink apart from being involved and being on it? Well, it'd just be silly. And so I think it's a worthwhile conversation to be having, to just share how we see the vision of the world and growing your companies tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I look forward to continuing the conversation then.
Yeah, me too, mate.
Cheers.
Cool.